Hey guys, this is Savannah Sanchez from The Social Savannah. Today I'm going to be talking about a topic that's been on my mind for a while now, and this is why a freelancer is better for your business than working with an ad agency. When I'm saying ad agency, I'm referring to your Facebook media buying agencies, Google media buying agencies, any agency that's going to take over your media buying and ad creatives. Since most of my clients that come to me to work with me as a freelancer have pretty much all came to me from an agency. And I have heard the same story over and over again, that they weren't getting the results that they wanted, the communication was poor, the expertise wasn't there, they were just so over agencies, they've even tried a few agencies and they've just been burned, they never want to work with an agency again. So I want to talk to you about their experience, but also I have an interesting perspective because I came from an agency. I worked in an agency for 2 years as a media buyer. And then I was promoted to a manager to manage the Facebook and Snapchat media buying teams. So I know the agency model. I left the agency because I didn't believe that model best served clients. I don't believe the agency model works. I don't believe that growing e-commerce brands benefit from going to an agency and are much better off hiring someone directly, whether as a freelancer or even someone in-house, or just working with an expert in that field directly instead of going to an agency is always better off for the client. So let me back up some of those claims. Now, the number one thing that I think is why an agency will never be as good as hiring an expert like myself is because the incentives aren't aligned. So what do I mean by that? When you're working with a media buyer, you obviously want them to perform for your business. You want them to care. You want them to be alert 24/7 of what's going on in your ad account. You want them to be trying new things, testing new strategies, always thinking about how to improve. The incentives need to be there for that person to put in the time and energy to care about growing your business. That should be what you are looking for in a media buyer. Whether you're looking to hire in-house, work with a freelancer like me, or go to an agency, you're looking for someone to care. So when you go to an agency, first things first, from my own experience working at an agency, you're never really assigned a team. They tell you have a team, they'll show you their office with a bunch of people in it, but ultimately you're working with one media buyer. That's your go-to person, they're gonna be the person on your account. It's not that there's like 20 people in a room all strategizing about how to make your account better. The reality is, you will be assigned one media buyer. Who that media buyer is, you'll never know. In the sales process, you'll speak to the sales team at the agency, you'll see all the case studies of all the amazing things that this agency has done. But who you actually get assigned to when you sign the contract, you'll never know until you sign up, which is kind of scary. This person often can be a recent college grad, maybe they just started last week. I've had, it sounds bad, but you can go to the LinkedIn of the person who is now on your account as a media buyer and you can see like, oh, they graduated 3 months ago and this is their first real job. Great, I trust them. So this is real, this happens all the time. I'm not just saying this to talk bad about anybody. Of course, there's great media buyers at agencies, but most of the time these are novice media buyers that are on your account. So put that aside. You get assigned your media buyer. Are the incentives aligned? They literally can't be. The way the agency model works is that any given media buyer gets assigned 10 to 15 ad accounts to manage at a time, which is an insane workload. I used to be a media buyer at an agency. I've never been more burned out in my entire life. Like, you can't even think straight because you have so many priorities, so much work. Talk to any media buyer at an agency and you will hear the same story of burnout. They overload you with clients. You're also not paid very well as a media buyer at an agency. The average media buyer salary at an agency is around $60,000. So in comparison to what a freelancer makes, an agency media buyer makes a fraction of that. Literally, because let's talk about the agency model and why the incentives aren't aligned. So when you're paying an agency, let's just say you're doing Facebook media buying as a service, and they charge $5,000 a month for media buying. I'm just using averages of what the market is. Let's just say you're spending $50,000 on ads per month. They charge 10% of spend. There you go. You have a 5K retainer. Each media buyer is managing 10 to 15 accounts at a time. So that one media buyer is generating $50,000 plus worth of revenue for the agency each month. Yet that agency media buyer is only getting paid 50 to 60 grand a year. So they're just making a fraction of the revenue that they bring in, and the media buyer knows this. Like, they're kind of demotivated by this, which is why great media buyers like myself, like so many other agency media buyers I know, have said, hey, I'm just gonna do this on my own. Like, I can make way more money. I don't have to use an agency where they're taking the lion's share, and I'm just getting a sliver, yet doing all the work. So because I would say they're not getting paid enough relative to what a freelancer would make if they just took on 5 clients of their own, and each one was paying 5K. That is such a huge difference than making 50K a year. So and that kind of goes back to my first point about who is going to be your media buyer. The good media buyers are either going to go off to do their own thing, like myself. They're either going to work at a brand and get paid a lot more. Media buyers who work directly at brands can get paid 150K plus a year. I know this because I have a lot of media buyer friends who went from agencies and now they're the director of paid social, working with one brand only, making 3 times as much. So you do have a lot of novice, low-level media buyers at agencies, and it's a constant churn. Like, when I worked at an agency, you wouldn't have a media buyer on one account for more than 3 to 6 months. Either, number one, they're leaving, they're ready to go off on their own like I did and start their own business or get a higher paying job at a brand, or another scenario that happens is that they get promoted. The good media buyers don't want to stay on 15 accounts at a time. That is just, it's a drain. There's no other way to say it. I've been there before. If you are managing 10 to 15 ad accounts at a time and you are not getting paid fairly for that work, you're working your nights, your weekends, you're so burned out. So good media buyers don't want to live that lifestyle for very long. I know I didn't. After about 6 months of being a media buyer, I was promoted to a manager, which is a much less stressful job. I was just able to hire media buyers, train them on my processes. So good media buyers get promoted, which also brings me back to my point. All of those case studies that you see about the agency you're working with, those are the good media buyers who achieved those results. But those good media buyers are now promoted to manager or director. They don't want to stay like in the grind of working 15 ad accounts at a time. So the directors at this agency and the higher level people, or even the owners of the agency, I have no doubt that they have really great media buying experience and are experts in e-commerce. I really don't doubt that. When you're in the sales process and you're talking to the top managers at this company and they're trying to sell you on your agency, they're gonna know their stuff because they got to this point by having some people who knew what they were doing. They were promoted to managers, and now it's just about hiring more lower level media buyers. My point is that the person on your account isn't going to be that high level director that got all of the great sales and all the great case studies are about. They've either gone and left to do their own thing, they're not even working there anymore, or they're just a manager. They're kind of overseeing the operation. They're growing the business. They're not in the grind anymore. So who is on your account? That's the mystery, and that's the scary part. They're typically very novice, low-level media buyers who are just drained. They're burned out. The churn of media buyers in agency, the average length of employment for a media buyer is less than a year, and that's because of burnout. The life of a media buyer at an agency is so rough. You are burned out so quickly. So even if you do get a great media buyer on your account, the chance of them leaving is very high. Most people don't have the same media buyer on their account for more than 6 months because they're moving to different parts of the company, they're leaving to another great job, they're getting burned out, they're leaving altogether. So the turnover is super high. You'll probably, if you are at an agency for a year, end up working with 2 or 3 different media buyers with varying levels of experience. And I'm only saying this because I've been there. I've worked at an agency. I understand the model. It's about getting as many clients in the door as possible and assigning as many clients at a time per media buyer. That's how an agency makes money. If I can give 10 or 15 clients to a media buyer and that media buyer makes $60K a year, each client is paying $5K, that agency is making a lot of money. So where's all that money going? That's going to the director roles, it's going to the CEOs, it's going to the partners. There's all these higher level people who you personally as a client will never interact with. They'll never be on your account, but your retainer money has to go to the full system. People who have nothing to do with your account, have never touched your account, don't even know your account exists. They got to pay everyone's salaries from the higher ups. Also pay for the fancy office, pay for the company retreats, pay for healthcare for all the employees. Meanwhile, you're just working with one singular media buyer. And I already talked to you about who knows what type of experience they have. Plus, do they even have the time to give the care to your account? That is the other factor. When you're working on 10 or 15 accounts at a time, even if you are great and you do care, you only have so much time in a day as a media buyer at an agency to give each account enough attention. So typically how this goes at an agency is after 3 months, clients leave. They stay for 3 months at most. They realize that this sucks and they end up finding another solution, whether going to a different agency or finding a freelancer or hiring someone in-house. The average client length is really short at agencies. So what the business model is how can we get clients in as fast as possible and replace the ones that are leaving? Some people may call this a churn and burn system. So as a media buyer, if you're working at an agency, you get accustomed to this of working on new clients at a time, clients being overpromised in the sales process of things that maybe the media buyer can't even deliver on realistically. Like if the media, like in the sales process, they were promised a 5x ROAS by the sales team because the sales team just wants to bring in a client. Once it's handed off to a media buyer, they know that they can't get more than a 2x. Now the client's pissed, client's already paid the contract. These are things that happen all the time at agencies. They're used to clients coming in and out. How can we sell the client to come in? How can we replace the next one that's leaving? That is the business model, which of course is not good for the client. This is why I left the agency life, because I saw this happening. I saw the churn and burn. I saw the burnout of media buyers. And I just saw that all of the extra money was just going to the office, all of the higher level people. Like, you don't actually get what you pay for at the end of the day. Like, you're paying for this one media buyer's salary, yes, but you're also paying for everything, all the sales team, the whole system behind it is all baked into your retainer. So let me contrast this with working with me. So as a freelancer, I get 100% of the pay, which is awesome. I mean, of course, I pay for my home office and my own medical expenses, but I get to keep the rewards of my effort. And if I'm charging, let's just say 10% of ad spend for a client, I am incredibly motivated to scale that account. If they're spending 30K right now, and I know that if I put in the effort to get them to spend 100K a month, my direct take-home pay is gonna triple or quadruple based purely off my efforts. Whereas if I was an agency, I'm on a salary. I don't care if the client leaves. I don't care if the client comes. I don't care if they scale. I don't care if they fail. I'm getting my paycheck every month. But as a freelancer, my pay is directly based off of how well my clients are performing. Also, I can only work with a few clients at a time. I am completely aware of my limitations, that I cannot work with 10 or 15 clients on my own, and I have to be selective of who I take on. So if I'm only working with a handful of clients at a time, each client is extremely important to me because I can make up a large percentage of my salary. If I lose one client, it could be devastating to my pay. So I'm extremely motivated to keep the clients that I have. When I bring on a client, I want to make sure the expectations are reasonable. I think there's an opportunity that I can improve the account after the audit, and that I can actually spend a lot of time with this business and grow this business. I'm really lucky that since I started as a freelancer about 8 months ago, a lot of the clients that I first got when I first started, pretty much all of them are still my clients. I only have one client that has quit during COVID, and it was because they sold luxury handbags and it just wasn't the right market for COVID. But I'm so lucky that I don't have any turnover with my clients. And I think it's because not only am I getting the results, they see that I care. I'm incentivized to care. Like, this is me growing my own business as a freelancer is directly correlated with my clients seeing success. I'm doing good work for them, and they're gonna stay with me, and they're gonna wanna work with me for the long term. Those are the type of clients that I wanna bring on. Long-term partners where I can take over their entire paid social strategy, work directly with entrepreneur, avoid burnout because I'm working for myself. I don't have to go to any pointless agency meetings, and I can 100% get the fruit of my efforts. What's also great with working with me or any other freelancer is that I have to make my own name for myself, and that is based off of referrals, number one. That's my number one place that I get new clients, is existing clients referring me to their friends in the community. So I'm so motivated to do good work for my clients. I can't operate off of the churn and burn agency model because I have my name attached to it. The word will get around that Savannah sucks, and I don't want that word to get around. I want to do great work for my clients. So that is extremely important to me, is keeping my good name. Also, I can't rely off of an agency name to boost me up, Like at an agency, like I said, they have the case studies, they have the fancy whatever Facebook case studies about all their great accomplishments, but that media buyer you're working with wasn't the person that did the case studies or did those great accomplishments. For me, when people want to hire me and work with me, I can only talk about the accounts that I've managed. What success have I done? What brands have I personally worked with? What budgets have I worked with? Not an agency, because it doesn't matter what the agency. If an agency has a case study, that's not the person who's on your account. When you're working with me, you're vetting my expertise because I'm the one you're talking to every day. I'm the one pulling the buttons. I'm pushing the levers. So if that's important to you to have someone with a lot of expertise on your account, hire the expert or freelancer directly like myself. And like I said, keeping the incentives aligned is the most important. You want to make sure that whoever is on your account is incentivized to keep you as a client, to scale you, to see you have success. And that's exactly how I am with my clients. The incentives are 100% aligned to see them succeed. So if you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, leave it in the comments below.